Welcome, everybody, to the Zoom Q&A, live Zoom Q&A for October. This is being recording. This is being recorded, and it'll be posted on our podcast and on YouTube if folks want to see the video. Before I get started and do a little bit of introductions, Karina, I'm going to pass it to you to talk a little bit about one of the foundational pieces of values-based living.
And this is particularly poignant for the Thanksgiving Thanksgiving weekend in Canada. It's this weekend. And it's acknowledging that traditional Indigenous systems and worldviews are the originators of living a values-based life. And we're here today rediscovering what traditional Indigenous teachers and elders have known for eons, and that knowledge was stripped from Indigenous cultures through violent colonization and assimilation, genocidal practices, and their wisdom endures to this day, and it will into the future. At VBL, we contribute as we can to the collective healing and reconciliation of Indigenous peoples of the land that we call Canada. And now we're going to be talking about Circle today, and I'll just take a second to notice that when we offer Circle each month, a portion of our proceeds goes to the Bear Clan Patrol in Calgary, which is really a grassroots community Indigenous organization that moves throughout the inner city community in Calgary, looking at promoting and providing safety, nutrition, conflict resolution, mobile witnessing and crime prevention, maintaining a visible presence on the streets, and providing an early response to situations. And I also noticed that they also have a really strong track record for finding missing persons, because of the amount of relationship and trust that they're building with people in the inner city, that they find that they have a really good track record for finding missing people that just need a kind support rather than a crime prevention support from the city police. So it's a really effective sort of addition to city policing structures.
Lovely. Yeah. Thanks, Karine. We're going to focus on Zoom Q&A and go over any questions that anybody has around values and conflict, whether that's inner conflict or external conflict. And we're also going to go over a topic. And today's topic is all about Circle. We're going to focus on values-based living circles and talk a bit about what it's like to be in a circle, why we even do circles, why does it matter, why do we care about it, and hear a little bit about from our perspective and potentially others what it's like to be in a VBL circle. Mini introduction. My name is Ali Ansell, co-founder of Values-Based Living and mediator for the last 9 or 10 years or something. And love what we get to do. It's one of my favorite parts of life is to get to do VBL stuff with Karine. Karine, what do you want to say about you?
Oh, hey, I'm Karine Lawrence, VBL creator and co-founder, along with Ali, and a mediator also for going on 15 years. Conflict resolution is such an important skill set, mindset, and process in every part of our lives. And the way we've built on the foundation of those skills to build values-based living in a more introspective, personal way is really exciting to me and really important to how we have different conversations and relationships with ourselves and then with others. And this is all just part of that whole thing. We'll get started talking about Circle, and I'd love to just to dial into the basics, Ali. So Ali facilitates the VBL circles. And so when you come to VBL Circle, Ali will be there hosting and facilitating. And I just want to ask you, Ali, what are the basics of circle process?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so Circle is a really special place where we communicate with each other differently than anywhere else we communicate, whether it's virtual, which is what we've been doing so that we can access people from wherever, or in person. It's people sitting in a literal or metaphorical circle with equal voice and space to share their experience and in whatever way works for them. And so often there are guiding questions to keep a focused sort of topic. The question can be as simple to start out with as, how are you today? But actually, how are you really? And then folks can share whatever they want about that. And because it's such a informal but structured environment, including a talking piece, which symbolizes the person who is speaking gets to speak, and the person who is not holding the literal or metaphorical talking piece gets to listen, person or people. Because of that and a few other structured pieces, it allows for really deep and vulnerable sharing if a person wants to go there. And so I've found that in Circle, it can be an hour and a half, but it can go super deep, like 1,000 miles deep, as Karine says, almost instantly. And it doesn't feel, at least in my experience, it doesn't feel jarring. It may feel noticeable, like, wow, we're really going there, but it doesn't feel unsafe because of the structure that's been set up. And so there are some opening pieces that come in to the beginning of the circle, including setting up guidelines around things like the talking piece, around things like confidentiality, a bit of expectations. In the VBL circles, we build the expectations together. And then it goes into the bulk of a circle is meant to be around sharing. And it's not about sharing so that other people can assess whether or not we're doing it right or give us ideas about how we can solve the problem that we're sharing. It's simply about witnessing each other's experience and allowing that person to continually to be in charge of their own experience and their own life, and just be with them while they share what that's been like for them. And then the end often wraps up with a check-in and sort of like a closing, maybe a ritual of some kind, whether that's a short meditation or a couple of deep breaths, or some simple sort of way to step out of the place that we just stepped into. And always with a reminder to have folks be gentle with themselves after they leave, because it can be, especially if folks are new to the circle process, it can be a little bit destabilizing to go so deep with maybe strangers and then go back to life and go, wow, I just talked about some stuff that I hardly ever talk about. Am I okay? And just to be really slow and be an objective observer of what might come up, like what emotions or thoughts or actions might come up in response to that, sifting through some of our core bits that may come up in circle.
Wow, that's amazing. Like a really great explanation of the process. And I really appreciate when I get to be in circle with you, and you being the facilitator, how much care you put into making sure you're walking people safely in and staying with them and moving us safely out. It's really such a safe container that you have with this structure and framework, knowing that the bulk of the conversations are just whatever's in the people in the circle. in their hearts and their minds. And that part is unstructured and safe, because you've got this container of lovely guidelines built around it. It's really a powerful experience for sure. Can I ask you, Ellie, what are your values that get met in circle process?
Yeah, what's funny is you warned me about this question right before we were going to come on, and I'm glad you did because ironically I hadn't asked myself that question. Do you think being in values-based living, that would be the lens on every single decision that we make, including doing circles? But I was like, oh yeah, it opened up a different little part of my brain to be like, what values are being met by going into circle?
I love that.
And so there's something about connection for sure. Um, there's something too about when I was getting started in mediation training, I was also taking circle training and also restorative justice training. And so I was participating in a lot of circles on a regular basis. And I got so much from them. Like my tolerance for vulnerability increased so much. Like for me growing up, talking about things that are vulnerable, talking about emotions they were not comfortable. They were pretty much off the table. And so I needed to like expose myself to safe environments where that was happening and it was okay. And that was such a great way to do that, I wanted to find a place to continue to offer that for people and continue to offer it in a way that's very accessible, makes it really easy for people to show up with no expectations that they show up, in a particular way, in a particular headspace, that they show up with a particular amount of money so they can come, really wanting it to be as accessible as possible. And so I don't know, maybe there's something about the value of contribution. There's like a passing on maybe of the benefit that I got. It feels like there's like a pay it forward thing happening here. Also courage, because even though I've been doing these for years, I always have this like old story that pops in that's like, is this going to be okay? Even though it's been the millionth gazillionth time, is it going to be okay this time? And it always is, but I often need to tap into that courage value, which is why by the end of a circle, I feel part of the reason why I feel really great is because that courage value is really being met. And then the last one is connection, the pay it forward, courage. There's a competence value for me too, because I over time am really confident in how effective the circle process is, and hopefully in my ability to facilitate it. And so I tend to get competence met through this process as well. I have to be careful of that though. Competence is a shadowy value for me, and I need to make sure I'm not taking on making sure people have a certain type of experience in circle, right? Like that's up to the attendees to have the experience that they need to have. And then the last piece is love. There's so much love in circle. There's so much non-judgment and acceptance and love, and that just oozes out. That's the main piece of feedback that I get from everybody who comes, is just that they really feel that pure sense of connection. And even if they're not saying the word love, it's a really loving environment. And so I really feel that in the words of feedback that we get.
Love that. And that really does come across. I've had a very similar experience. I'm just going to take a second. Gavin, do you want to talk about your experience in circle? You can say no if you want. That's part of the circle process, is that when you're in circle, if you're not ready or this isn't like feeling comfortable, or sometimes we get flooded with emotions, we get to just pass. Or if we're just like, no, I got nothing on this one, pass. So Gavin, I'm going to throw it out because I know you've been to a number of the VBL circles.
I do try, yeah. There's so much I get out of them. I think the most superficial part is it's a date that's set, so it's a time that's set to do that introspective work. And left to my own devices, I would do a consumption of media as opposed to participating in. I don't. I think I'm getting better at that, but this is always a good check in and held accountable to getting into the introspective work. And with the introspection, I find it incredibly useful. Like Ali gives us the topic a bit in advance, and I start thinking about it, and it just kind of gets a bit muddled in my head. And then once we're in circle, seeing everyone else come at it, it's you get to pick and choose how people think about it and it starts to clarify it because you can so often people say things in a way that you go, yes, that's what I mean, and that's said better than I could say myself. And then even a little deeper than that, it's um, seeing pe- seeing people struggle with things I struggle with myself. And it's so much easier to see it in someone else than it is to see it in ourselves. And I don't mean for that to be uh, I've talked about this quite frequently. It's one of those things that I don't do it to point and laugh at people. I do it because it's easier to see it in someone else and know it's in me. So that part. And I guess with that, that's uh, it cultivates the comfort with vulnerability, what you were talking about there, Ali. And that's something that prior to VBL, I was not comfortable with vulnerability at all. And then we come into this, and it's just kind of, okay, that's the norm here. And you notice it more when you go away and you think, oh, I feel better about myself being vulnerable, and I'm vulnerable with people that take advantage of it. And it's, oh yeah, there's parts of why I have to be careful with this, why circle is so special in that regard. So there's a lot in it that being along for the ride and being a part of the process is just so valuable to it for me.
Oh, God. Thanks, Gavin. I loved hearing that. I was like writing that down as you were talking. It's really got me like extra excited now to hear because as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, me too. Me too. I also get that stuff. I'm going to circle. So thank you.
I think that one piece about being vulnerable in safe space is like incredibly a profound experience. As you said, Gavin, we don't always we want to be vulnerable, whether we want to or not. We have a human need to be vulnerable, and our experiences have often, unfortunately, taught us that that is not okay. That there are people, as you said, might take advantage of that or shame us for that or exploit it or use it against us, shut it down, whatever those things are. But we still have a wanting to connect because there's nothing faster to build connection with others, but also with self. We can't be building trust with ourselves if we can't be vulnerable. And sometimes we need to get it out, like say it out loud. And in Circle, it's set up to be a default safe space with somebody overseeing that safety. So you've got sort of like it's okay, I gotcha. I've created this safe space and I'm going to make sure it stays a safe space. And to be able to say, here's what's on my mind. And as Ali said, with no judgment, there's no one that's going to be like, actually, I'm going to just address what Gavin just said. That's off the table. It's not about building on each other's ideas. We can reflect and be like, that was a cool idea, and I feel that way too. But it's not about directing that. It's just witnessing. Gavin had an experience, and he put it out there, and now Gavin's experience is a little bit my experience too, because I'm taking that in, but not to comment on his experience, but to have it build mine. And it's really different for how we have conversations, where it's like this, like building, like typically we in conversation, we build on each other's ideas and we're brainstorming together. And if somebody has a problem or we're trying to fix it real quick, that is not, as Ali said, that's not the point of circle. It's not about fixing or changing. It's about, here is what is in my heart and on my mind, and I'm just gonna stay here with me and have other people witness what I've just shared. And there's no, and I'm not there to comment or support anybody else's journey. I'm here for me, with me, and I'm building trust, building my courage, building my vulnerability. And that's a building trust with myself. That's cool. Oh my gosh. Ali, did you want to add anything? I have other questions I want to just get to, but did you want to add anything in there? Because these are big thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. They're I love that the vulnerability topic and like focus is coming out, because that's so true. And I think we can be, I think when we're talking about it, Corinne, we can be a little cautious about throwing that out there because we don't want to scare people. But because we're having a long form chat about it, this is the time to sort of throw that out there and then give the context around. It's vulnerable, but it's okay because this space is made for that. And so people aren't going to be asked to do anything that they don't want to do. Every single thing is voluntary. Like if folks just want to like sign in and like not say a word, just be an observer, that is so okay and so welcome. um and I, yeah, would welcome people to come. I've said before, wouldn't it be cool if we all just joined from like our beds and we like click log in and we're all like cuddled in bed in our blankets and our pillows and we're just so comfortable, and then we just share whatever is on our mind. That's a dream of mine, that we get to that level of comfort and vulnerability. We're not there, and that's okay, and if we never are, that's okay too. But in my like my image of like complete relaxation and vulnerability, that's what comes to mind for me.
I like that. I like that vision.
Mm.
I'll say one of my experiences with my first experience with circle was really an elucidating moment. It was many years ago, in university, when circle was sort of emerging in popular culture, and we did a little talking circle, and I'm an extrovert, so I absolutely love the energy of like people talking and building on ideas. That thing what I said circle isn't, I love that. Like where we're like, oh yeah, me too, and guess what else, and oh, have you heard about this, oh, have you tried this, like I love that energy. And I don't think I realized how much I influence conversations, because I talk fast and I think fast, extroverting bleh, all over the place. And so I had this experience where we ran around this circle. It was quite a big circle. And we were doing with a talking piece and going really slow. And I was observing somebody who was saying, I feel it's like, it's kind of like, and they're really struggling with finding the word. And I was sweating with exertion practically, because I knew the word that they were looking for. And I was so excited that I could share that with them and help them with their word. I had a good word, and that was probably the one they wanted. And I was like, that's not allowed. That's not allowed. And I didn't do it. And they chose a different word. And they chose a very different word. My word would have been fine, and they probably would have been like happy to accept it, but it absolutely would have changed their course of thought. It absolutely would have changed their input. And I was like, oh, Corinne, the audacity that you have, my dear. It knocked me on my little butt. And I was like, check yourself. Wow, I didn't even realize, with the best of intentions, how much I influence other people, especially people that aren't as fast at talking as I am. And I was like, oh, that's not okay, my dear. I need to really check that out. Anyway, I just thought I would share that story because it really profoundly rocked my boat. And I was like, I need to now wait. And that really set me on a journey of understanding my contribution and how it changes other people's contribution.
You know, what's funny is I've been followed up with from circle participants before where they tell me they want me to know, like, just so you know, I really wanted to like reassure that person that it was okay. And like I like this thing about I'm dealing with such a similar situation and I couldn't tell them, you know. And I tell them, yeah, I know that's the trade-off is like we tap into our patients and we just let them have their messy experience without needing to fix it or make it better or okay, or reassuring them that we're there because we are there. Our presence is enough. And but also I will say that we have a private Facebook group where I'll if people want to be involved in that and talk to each other afterwards, they can do that. They can connect with one another afterwards and say, you know, are you okay with talking about what we talked about in circle? And if the person says yes, then I just want you to know, whatever, this resource. And when you're out of circle, go for it. But the practice of waiting and giving that person complete control over their own expression is so not the norm. And if we can set aside even that well-meaning desire to influence, I think it ends up being like a transformative experience.
It meets a basic human need that we aren't able to meet anywhere else. And again, with the best of intentions.
Oh, can I tell a story about my training? One of the exercises in my training, the circle keeper who's amazing, her name is Mandy Halabi. She was an excellent peacemaking circle trainer. She had us do this exercise and she was like, okay, we're going to do this exercise. I hate this exercise, but you all need to go through it. So we're going to do it. And she put a bag in the middle of blocks, a bag of blocks in the center of the circle and said, what you're going to do is we're going to start with one person, no talking aloud. And the first person goes and you can do whatever you want with these blocks. It's up to you. You can do nothing or you can do something. And then when we've gone around the entire circle and everybody has done nothing, then we know we're done. So the first person, you know, just dumps everything out and then goes and sits down. And then the next person like puts a couple blocks together and goes and sits down. And the next person maybe takes something off and then adjusts it a little bit and goes and sits down. And we do this in about 20 people. 3 hours later, the tension in the room is palpable. And there's like 2 people left. One of them is continually working to finish this like kind of sculpture that's been made. And then another person or a couple others are just trying to make it stop. So they're putting all the bricks in the bag and tying it up. And then the person comes and takes it out. And then they're tying it up and then they're sitting on it. And then they're tying it up and they're putting it in another room. And they can't speak to each other, but they're just trying to message like, please let this stop. And so we're all just in suffering. We're all just tortured, either watching this and being, I'm going to pass this, please just pass. I'm passing, you pass. And then afterwards, we're allowed to talk about it. So we debrief. And hearing people's experiences was fascinating. And hearing the person say, I just wanted it to end. And then hearing the other person say, I couldn't let us end without having anything to show for all the work we did. I needed there to be something that we all did together instead of just back in a bag and we might as well have not done it. So I kept bringing it out and I needed us to have like a creation at the end. And it was such a fascinating lesson in like human dynamics and what's important to each of us. Talk about values being satisfied and frustrated in a circle. Holy smokes. Meanwhile, the facilitator is just sitting there going, it happens every time. just let it happen. Let them go through this. And we did, and it was worth the time, but man, I'll never forget it.
What a profound experience. And yeah, obviously like rocked your boat and changed your perspective on what needs to be done in circle and how people need different things from circle. That's amazing. I'm going to ask you a little bit, Ali. When I look at other circles that are out and about in the world, like on social media or any other like circles that are going on out there, I notice that they're generally geared toward women's circles or men's circles. And at VBL, we just say circles. Is there anything about the difference, the decisions, the dynamics, anything that you want to talk about there?
The decision to offer Circle and all of our VBL offerings to all genders was very deliberate and felt really important. Partly because there isn't a lot of that out there, a truly safe space for all genders to come and explore and self-reflect. Also, I think there's real benefit to having, let's say, men and women be vulnerable in front of each other in a way that's more than just like when you're married, you share things with each other. I think it's really too bad that ends up kind of being our main source of vulnerable interaction is with those really, really core people in our lives. And we put a lot of expectation on maybe one person in our life if we feel like we can only be vulnerable in front of one person. I think being able to open that up and not rely on the person to be able to hold the vulnerability, but rely on the system, the structure itself. One of my favorite lines from circle training is the circle takes care of itself. If the structure is there and the framework is there and the circle keeper is on it, the circle takes care of itself. People want to follow the guidelines of the circle to maintain that sense of safety and allow that vulnerability because it's so nourishing and feels so good to be there. And in order for us to receive it, we need to be giving it as well. And so to have, let's say, men and women speak to each other in a vulnerable space that is safe, I think is very rare and very special. By the way, I also think that, let's say, men's circles and women's circles are very, very nourishing and very important, and they hold a very special place. And I think having something that's open to everyone is just as important. And so that's us, that we chose to take that route. And the variety of different perspectives increases the variety of learning and growth. I think we've seen that quite clear. So we're definitely not going to be changing that anytime soon.
Absolutely. And it's the way that, we approach values-based living, values being open to men identifying, women identifying, any non-binary. That is the values are the superseding organizing principle. And we have those common experiences with different values, and those are the pieces that bring us together. And it's really amazing, like the experiences that we've heard with women saying, I've never, like in BBL Circle, I've never been able to speak from the heart and know in front of men and about my experience as a woman and know that there's no yeah buts, there's no like rebuttal. I get to just say what I believe and feel and experience, and that's not the beginning of an argument. It just is my experience. And there's something like profound in having that experience again in a safe and like a guaranteed safe space. Amazing.
Something else I really love about this, and I won't go on too long because it's my own sort of nerdy interest in people, is each of us has a different mix of, like, if we think about it like yin yang, we've all got yang and we've all got yin. And sometimes yang can be associated with masculine principle, and sometimes yin can be associated with feminine principle. And that can get misconstrued into thinking men and women, which it isn't. But I think it's really cool to see in a more neutral space like a circle how each of our yin shows up and how each of our yang shows up, and to sort of let the label of gender sort of take a back seat and just be talking from a values perspective, because we all have it. And to realize that maybe my yang aspect is really resonating with Gavin's yang aspect, and we can connect on that level and just set aside what that needs to mean about gender. And I love that. And I have a bit of a dream that we could lean into that in the future, and work on healing the wounded parts of us that lean more yin and lean more yang, and then collectively work on that. There are parts of us, regardless of our gender, that need, let's say, masculine healing or need feminine healing. And I think it's going to be more effective if we do it all together than in isolated groups.
Sure. Just to add on to that, part of just what I get out of it and just observing other people is seeing that they see the world a different way or care about different things. And it brings my thoughts into more clarity when you can see, people care about that. I don't really, but I can respect that. I see it's out there. The world makes more sense knowing that there are people that care about different things than my perspective. So I just find that hugely valuable. I'm a bit of a crow collecting all the shiny objects, like you said, of study of human behaviors and cognitions and understandings.
Absolutely. I like that. Ali, is there anything else that you want to share about VBL circles, the process, some examples of what people could expect? Like, you've gone through like a bit of like how it's set up and how it is structured and how it ends, but is there anything else that you want to add that you haven't already mentioned?
I think I want to say two things. One is just a small piece around structure that I didn't say before. There's something really cool about how nobody is higher up or lower than anyone else in a circle, even the facilitator. That was something that was difficult for me to get used to when I started in mediation. In mediation, we're neutral, like we put our perspective aside and we purposely don't have opinions. And then when I get into a circle, I have to have opinions, and I'm in the same space as everybody else and expected to share the same level of vulnerability as much as I, am ready to in that moment. And going into like restorative justice circles, for example, where we're working with victims and offenders, I still need to be sharing of myself. And so that barrier that I had up that I was using for mediation because it was needed had to come down. And that was quite a shocking process at first to get used to. But the benefit of it is a really beautiful one, because regardless of who's keeping the circle, as long as they've got the training and the background and the know-how, it can be anybody with any perspective, and so there's a real beauty to the equity that shows up in a circle. Speaking of equity, it's really cool how no matter how much time we coordinate for the circle, and no matter how much time we have, whether it's an hour or 2 hours or an 8-hour circle, which I've done, we always end on time. People intuitively speak as much as they want to and need to, and it never goes too long. It's never too short. It's just exactly the time we need. So the circle really does take care of itself.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the questions that I have. And so we have a circle tomorrow on what is Thanksgiving Day in Canada. So Monday the 9th. And in the evening there's a circle. So what is that circle going to be about, and what else is going on? Oh, you remember.
That was the second piece. I knew as soon as you started talking, it would prompt me. The second piece I was going to say is, how are VBL circles different than other circles that we see? There are a lot of similarities because when it works, right? But the thing that we're playing around with in VBL is obviously values. So values are the focus of, say, the activities and the questions that we ask. What we've been doing for the last year and a half or 2 years is picking a value for each circle. So every month there's a different value chosen. And so there are reflective circles, reflective questions to explore. How would I define this value? Like, for example, gratitude seems obvious enough, but we might each define gratitude a little bit different. We might have a different relationship with gratitude. We try to keep it creative. And so if people want to define the value of gratitude with a drawing or colors or a poem or just a written definition or a song. I had somebody play their guitar as their like sharing piece one time. It was so cool. And so, but always using the values as the jumping off point to help us have something to hang on to as we're digging into getting to know ourselves. So tomorrow will be the gratitude circle. Expect some sharing. So expect some individual reflection activities. Like, I encourage folks to bring a pen and paper and colored stuff if you want to. If there's a way that you like to get to know yourself and express yourself creatively, whether you end up sharing that with the group or not, bring those things, paints or pastels or musical stuff, or writing, or maybe you just want to sit there in silence during the activity, and because you're more of a verbal processor and you just need to talk it through. There's really no wrong way to do it at all. And so all circles are by registration. No drop-ins. That's important because it maintains the safety of the circle. I like to chat with folks before they come, even if it's just a little bit. And so you can email us at connect@valuesbasedliving.com to register. And that's it. It's going to be lovely. It's a wonderful way to, like Gavin said, dedicate time for you every month without any expectations of needing to be somebody or put on a particular persona. You just get to be. If you're feeling terrible that day, you just get to feel terrible. If you don't feel like talking, you could just come and not talk. If you feel like celebrating something and you feel too shy to brag, in quotes, to your friends about it, come and brag, and there is going to be no judgment. There's a do no harm, be kind to each other, and otherwise just go crazy and bring whatever version of yourself is authentically you that day. So whether you come tomorrow for the circle, 7 Mountain Standard Time, or another month, it's always there for you when you need it.
I love that. And I'm just going to say connect@values-basedliving.com is the way to get a hold of us. And we'll be taking those registrations just as they come in, and you get to pick which circle you attend. Is there anything else going on coming up? We've got a values course bundle. Do you want to talk about that, Allie?
Sure. Okay. Switching gears of values course bundle. We have a inner conflict values course series that we recently bundled. So it's 3 amazing courses. Number 1, know your values, foundational piece. Number 2, values-based decision making, how to make robust decisions using your values. And number 3, values-based assertiveness, how to interact in the world and tell people about yourself in an assertive way using your values. And so go on our website. It's all over the place. Look for the orange banner and you can check that out. It's a self-paced online course with a workbook and with a chat function to interact with us or other students. And so if that interests you at all and seems like it's the right time for you to be reflecting on yourself, not just through the course, but on an ongoing basis, because it's the type of thing that you can come back to again and again as new challenges come up in your life. The material continues to work, whether you're 15 or you're 55 or you're 95. The examples are still going to work through the values lens. So yeah, if you're interested, check it out.
Is there any other way to interact with other VBL folks or with Corinne and Allie? I'm thinking about maybe the Facebook page.
Yeah, if folks want to be added to the Facebook page, it's or the Facebook group rather. We have a community that we're building. It's currently private, so just send us a note and we will invite you to that. Again, to maintain the safety of the space. Send us a note and you're welcome to come on there. We post our offerings a little bit sooner. We give maybe some sneak peeks to things. We also give sneak peeks around what's on our Patreon account, which is we have a talk about vulnerable podcast episodes that go behind the Patreon paywall. So that's another way of learning more about how this value stuff works in practice and getting to learn a little bit more about Corinne and I. And what am I missing, Corinne?
I think that's it. Also, sometimes I'll go in there, for example, and just talk about things that I'm excited about or working through. And just a nice way to be like, thank you, Lola. That's a very good point. Being able to say like, I just had a success or a breakthrough. I'm often working through identifying any shadow values that I can find and being like, you guys, I just found a new shadow value. I'm so excited. So some of those places for those conversations as well. And other folks can put your questions about values-based living or just values in general. And Allie, Christina, and I are there to check that out and respond, but also get the community responding as well.
And if you're wondering what shadow values are, we have a podcast episode about that. So check that out and learn a little more. They're juicy. They're cool.
They're juicy and cool. I like that. All right. Anything else to add?
I'm good. I'm excited. Thanks for running us through that, Corinne.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me talk to you about Circle. I love when you talk about it because you're so passionate about it. And it's just brilliant the way you do it.
It's the best. It's wonderful that that it works and complements so well with the values-based living model that we're building. And Gavin, thanks for giving your thoughts. I appreciate you're just like not shy about it. You know your mind around these pieces, and I love to hear it every time. So thanks for being willing to do that.
You're very welcome, and thank you for putting these on. Much appreciated.
Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Eat delicious food, I hope, for everyone. And we will talk again soon. Until next time.
Happy Thanksgiving.